I'm Stuff reporter Philip Matthews, and Munted is my perspective on the Christchurch earthquakes. Over 7 episodes, we'll show how and why a New Zealand city was munted, first by Mother Nature and then by politics. This time on Munted, a wizard sums up the mood of the city.
Have they gone stark staring bloody mad?
The bell tolls for heritage buildings. And what about the government?
The government sucks, that's it. Simple.
In this episode, Christchurch fights back.
Oh, Spirit of Christchurch, we call upon you now to curse the people destroying our history and our most important buildings, polluting the atmosphere, destroying the tourist trade, ruining the theatre. Curse is on your heads!
The world turned upside down after the earthquakes, and protests were one of the side effects, as expressions of anger or powerlessness or growing frustration. These weren't rent-a-crowd protesters either. These were ordinary people. Families, the middle class, the elderly, children. Thousands of people who had never found a reason to protest before were suddenly taking it to the streets. We've already seen the large crowd that gathered to tell Council Chief Executive Tony Marriott it was time to quit.
You are standing up for the rights of our city and you are asking for a change in leadership.
Christchurch's wizard returned from spiritual exile in Oamaru to challenge the Anglican Church's rash willingness to destroy and replace the city's main cathedral.
Pray that the bishop can change course by stopping the demolition immediately.
I'm not able to stay and have a conversation.
Now,
but rather
is important. Actions are louder than words. If you can only stop demolition, we'll be your friends for life. Took 40 years to build. What's the hurry?
As a radical traditionalist, the wizard's view seemed to express the wider mood of the times. People in Christchurch were protesting to get back what they had lost.
Sell it to us, the people of Christchurch, and we'll rebuild. Council rebuild it.
Littleton punk folk band The Eastern became the soundtrack of these fraught times. They even loaned a title to filmmaker Gayleen Preston when she made a TV series about the time of the earthquakes, Hope and Wire.
And you are here because you have been messed around, you have been screwed around, you have been abandoned. We are here to say that it's not acceptable today. If there is a finger somewhere, it needs to be pulled.
A folk band, a man dressed as a wizard, and red-zoned Anglican priest Mike Coleman. These were the leaders and spokespeople of official and unofficial groups and movements.
We have had so many protests over this time and it's been dumbed down.
Sometimes protests took a surreal turn. John Howland, who lost his son in the earthquake, poured something brown over Brownlee at an earthquake memorial event. It turned out to be a tasty mixture of chocolate, egg, flour, salt, pepper and vinegar. The protest action brought him 80 hours of community service. So John, why did you do it?
Because of the government, they're heartless. Yeah, they just got no heart. They don't listen to the people, you know, look what's going on now, you know.
What would you like the government to do?
Oh, get shit together and sort this blooming city out and all the people that are suffering, you know. It's just tell you, I just had enough.
There was a Bare Your Bum protest on New Brighton Beach that could have been organised by Benny Hill. What this protest showed is that, despite everything, there was often a sense of humour and imagination in the post-quake protests. Outraged Beatles fan James Dan appealed to rock history when he protested the demolition of the Majestic Theatre.
It's not just Christchurch's disgrace, it's the whole country, it's Jerry and it's John Key. And they need to come down here and front up and say, yes, I'm going to put a bulldozer through this building that the Beatles played at, that the Kinks played at. It's a historic building. And actually, and we should be telling the government they should be ashamed of what they've done to this city. Ashamed!
The demolition of some of Christchurch's beautiful heritage buildings attracted unusually polite and literate protesters. This group assembled when the historic Cranmer Court building, a Gothic edifice built back in 1873, was torn down in October 2012.
Come on, boys, how about
of aggression and hostility towards this community. This site is of great cultural significance and it is being deliberately vandalised.
There was even a woman ringing a bell and shouting shame many years before that Game of Thrones episode. Every Christchurch homeowner had a story about EQC or insurance companies, and they weren't always pretty. Insurance companies were prime targets of protests for homeowners who felt they weren't getting a fair deal. These included the state-owned insurance company Southern Response that took over from local insurer AMI.
We expect them to continue to bully and intimidate people that are part of this action, try and degrade us, try and vilify us.
It was later revealed that Southern Response hired a security firm to spy on claimants. The government, with Brownlee's knowledge, spent nearly $180,000 on spies. Brownlee would go on to defend the use of a security firm as a legitimate way to protect insurance company staff from the upset public. After closing off the city and relocating populations from the east, restructuring the Christchurch school system added insult to injury.
They have taken over the central city and now they are coming for our schools.
Unfortunately, Wellington has no idea the abuse that they are doing to us.
The city's school principals were put into a hall in Lincoln, and as a government report later explained, they had no means of knowing what was to ensue. On arrival, they were presented with a colour-coded information pack. Purple meant closure or merger. Orange meant significant change. Green meant no change. One school that didn't make it was Phillipstown, a primary school that had served families in the inner east since 1877. The school's last principal, Tony Simpson, became a local hero because of his honesty and determination as he took on a government that seemed ruthlessly determined to enforce its plan.
We've had some bad news today, and the Minister of Education has decided that the proposal to merge us with Woolston School will go ahead. And I'm really hurting right now. I actually feel like crying. I'm so privileged to be the principal of such a wonderful school. This is a sad day for Phillipstown.
Parents knew that schools were the centres of communities after the 2011 earthquakes. They offered continuity and certainty when everything else was in a state of disarray. In 2017, the Ministry of Education finally apologised for the way Christchurch schools were treated after the Ombudsman criticised the Ministry's secrecy and lack of engagement. When the media caught up with Tony Simpson to ask what he thought, he said that the Ombudsman's report gave him a feeling of hope that this will never be repeated again. Next time on Munted. 10 years on, is there any hope?